Preview.
There's a light coming from underneath. I'm getting back into the car. I'm going.
This unique video footage is of Police Constable Alan Godfrey in a state of hypnotic trance.
There's a light. Shining a light.
Doctors are attempting to recover 40 minutes from Alan's consciousness, lost on a cold night in November 1980. PC Godfrey had been out on night shift, driving out to a local estate near Todmorden to investigate a series of strange reports from concerned locals.
Just as I'm about to turn up there, something caught my eye. I was kind of going to turn up, and then I looked up the road and there was an object. Whatever that object was, it made me stop turning, and I decided to go and investigate. I got within about 20 yards of this object, and I'm telling you now, forget what you might believe or disbelieve, this object was something out of Star Wars of today. Was I scared? I suppose I was. I'm scared when I go to a domestic. I'm scared when I go to a pub to eject a drunk. You get adrenaline rush. I just sat there and I was totally gobsmacked. It's never crossed my mind at that time, was it a spaceship? You know, that was the last thing I was thinking. I was just wondering what the hell it was, what it were doing there. And I was more concerned about somebody coming the other way and crashing into it. I just didn't know what to do with it.
PC Godfrey tried to radio back to base on 2 separate radios, but was unable to get through on either.
So I'm left here with a situation, I won't say panicking, but wondering what to do next. I had to make a decision pretty quick. What are you going to do? I remember picking my clipboard up, and I thought I'll do a quick sketch of this. It was approximately 20 feet wide. It was about 14 feet high. It was hovering off the ground. I could see my police car, the headlights were shining right underneath it. It was diamond in shape, but the bottom half of the object seemed to be rotating anti-clockwise very slowly. But as I'm watching it, you know, we're in gobble, I realised that it was actually going that fast clockwise. It was the optical illusion of going backwards. And then it was just this brilliant, brilliant bright light. It was just a poof. And then I was at the other side of the object, just like that. I was another 40 yards up the road, and I'm driving the car. First reaction, looked in the mirror, nothing there. Turned the car around, went back to the scene, nothing there. What's going on, you know? Have you hallucinated? If it was very, very real. It was a very, very real hallucination. No, I realised what I'd seen was real and it had happened.
Why would he come forward? Unless it was true, what's he got to gain? He's not doing it for financial gain. Money's never been discussed when I'm talking to him. You know, it's just clearly bothered him. He has seen something at close proximity, within 30 metres in this case, for a duration of 7 to 8 minutes. You know, you can't get confused at 30 metres. And at 30 metres you can rule out all the usual excuses of a meteor, balloon, swamp gas, aeroplanes, whatever.
What other people have said over the years, you know, that I've been told it was Venus. What Venus was doing blocking the road, I don't know. I mean, lots of theories have gone around at the time. I'm telling you, that object was real, it was solid, it was a nuts and bolts craft, believe you me.
Over the next few weeks, several other sightings of strange objects in the night skies came in. 5 other police officers from the surrounding areas all reported that they had seen something strange that night. Alan was asked by his superiors to sign the Official Secrets Act, but the story had already hit the national press and attracted the attention of UFO investigator Harry Harris.
I was then contacted by Norman Collinson. He was then a detective inspector of police, head of the Manchester Fraud Squad. He invited me to come and interview Alan. A crowd of us crowded into Alan's front room, and Alan related his event. And then after that, he's grilled by Norman Collinson. And I mean grilled. At some stage, and I can't remember at what point, it became apparent that he'd lost time.
Through exhaustive interrogation, the team discovered that roughly 40 minutes of Alan's evening remained missing. But they couldn't account for what happened.
When we discovered that Alan had suffered an amnesia, a missing time, it occurred to me that hypnosis might assist in probing his missing memories. And we arranged acts of hypnosis to be carried out by a consultant psychiatrist and lecturer in clinical psychiatric medicine at Manchester University, and another doctor who carried out hypnosis for the police.
There's a light coming from underneath. I'm getting back into the car. I'm going. For the car, I'm going.
It was a bit strange watching yourself asleep, for want of a better word. But I was telling the incident as I remembered it in my conscious memory. You know, I was leaving the police station doing all what I've told you earlier on, right up to doing the sketch. I hear myself saying that I'm floating, I'm being carried or floating. It's black, everything's black, and I tell him that I'm in a room and there's some horrible things in there, and I had to describe them.
It's not horrible.
Who's horrible?
They are.
Who's they?
I don't want to talk about them
Why not?
because they're horrible.
Can you briefly describe?
I don't know.
What does it look like?
They're small.
And I'm sat watching this and I'm thinking, what's this all about? And I mentioned these little creatures, about 3 foot 6 high, with lamp-shaped heads, with dark eyes. That's how I described them. I was very, very frightened of them.
Any objects on the bed?
No. Who wants
Completely.
me to get on
Who wants you to get on it?
it?
Are you getting on it?
Not bloody likely.
What's happening now then?
It was kind of watching yourself and saying, yeah, I would react like that. I would do that, but I can't remember doing it. You know, this is weird. This can't be right. You know.
I'm getting on it.
You're getting on the bed? Why are you getting on it now then?
I just thought about getting on it.
All right.
I describe these creatures attaching something, a bracelet or something, to my leg, and these little things came over and plugged into this. Oh, when I heard that did it for me. I had to. What do you do? Do you believe what you're saying? I mean, been abducted by an alien? I mean, it's not right, is it? Come on, it was bad enough having to live with the I've seen a UFO syndrome. Never mind, I've seen a UFO and been abducted. Disturbed me. So I had to come up with a solution. All these things are flying around in my head, and I'm thinking, there's got to be an answer. There's got to be I'm a policeman. There's got to be a rational answer to this. Why am I saying this? What am I coming this incredible story for? Did it happen or didn't it happen?
I believe Alan wholeheartedly. I don't believe he's capable or that, for that matter anybody, is capable of duping something for so long under those conditions, i.e. 3 months apart, quite obviously hypnotised, quite obviously deeply hypnotised, comes out with the same scenario, same answers to the same questions. No, I don't believe his life for one moment.
If it was the only case ever reported, and nobody else had ever said anything similar, then you might say, well, this is odd. How come it's only just happened to one West Yorkshire bobby and not to anybody else? But there's a rash of cases, not only in this country, all over the world. Alan Godfrey's not alone.
I know the incident, the encounter was real. That's no argument that I'll stand up anywhere you like, and I have done for 22 years, and I'm not going to change my mind now. That incident happened. It was a nuts and bolts crap, and I wasn't the only person that saw it. The hypnotic regressions and the abductions, one or two things. It happened, it was real, or I was reliving something that I'd read about and got it confused with my own memory. And when I've been hypnotised, I've come out with that. Nobody will ever know. Not even myself. But that is the way I cling on to reality.
What on earth is it? Never seen anything quite like that before.
We didn't know what it was because it wasn't moving like an aircraft.
Most UFO sightings can be dismissed pretty quickly. Others take a little bit longer, but then there's some that still, leave us scratching our heads.
Something happened there.
I don't know. I think it's put there for some reason, and I cannot understand what it is.
These stories are some of the strangest experiences ever described in the UK. We can't tell if they're true, but they are all recounted by ordinary people. Now they are your witnesses. August 2000, the skies above Brighton. A strange light is encountered by a police helicopter crew. Could it be a UFO?
My name's John Tickner. I was a policeman until just a few weeks ago when I retired from Sussex Police, where I've been for 30 years. The last 12 years of my service was on the air support unit, working on the police and ambulance helicopter. As far as I remember, it was a normal day. It was a night shift that we do. We'd work through until 2 o'clock in the morning, and we just had a normal shift. It was a fairly clear night, a still night, quite a pleasant, typical August summer evening.
We were then heading back towards Shoreham, which is about 12 miles away.
It's normal practice for us just to, instead of just going from one place to another and focusing on the home part, because we're an emergency service, we'll listen into the police radios in the towns as we pass them and just generally look about. And what I was doing that night was I was operating the thermal image camera and just looking around, casting around the Brighton area that we're passing over, and we were listening to the Brighton radios just to see if anything that was going to happen that we were ready for and briefed about, so that we knew what was going on.
John's crew were nearing the end of their working day on a routine call-out. Brighton's revellers below them parted into the night, unaware of the mysterious drama unfolding in the skies.
The first thing that happened was, in fact, Sean, the paramedic, he was sat in the right-hand rear seat, looking out the window, and he was the first one to see just a light.
As soon as I saw it, I notified the pilot so that he was aware of it, so he could see it in case we needed to get out of the way, and also if he could talk to the pilot and see why they were in our area and why they were flying so low. We then flew around and tried to identify it as soon as we could.
But the helicopter pilot was unable to open communications with the other vehicle. Concern grew for whether the object was a danger or not.
So I looked out of the window initially and saw the light, just so I could work out where to take the camera, and then brought the camera around onto it to see what the thermal image picture would give me.
It didn't have the normal, the tail lights and the flashing lights that you would sort of normally see on an aircraft. So we didn't actually know what it was.
With the camera trained on the object, the mystery would surely be solved.
What I was expecting to see was the shape of an aircraft, because that's what we normally see. If we can't work out what the lights are or where they're going, then put it on the thermal image camera and you get a lovely silhouette of the aircraft or the helicopter, and you can actually work out what it is usually. But on this occasion, I found it on the camera, brought the camera around onto it, and it was a cylinder. It's difficult to say how big it was.
It's very difficult at night time in the dark to judge distances and size of things, and all we could see was this light, so didn't have a clue how big it was.
When it's at night, you can't tell how close it is. It could be very, very close, or it could be very, very far in the distance. That's the problem with any video footage of lights at night.
John's camera was now carefully tracking the object's path, giving his crew the images they needed to solve the mystery.
Initially, it did give the impression of moving quite quickly and away from us. So we were kind of moving around. You can actually see that on the video footage, that it does seem to be, we do seem to be chasing it around. And that was quite odd to start with, that it gave the impression it was moving very fast.
We had sight of it, and either it passed us or we passed it. It went down the starboard side of our aircraft. We were curious as to what it was, because we need to know, just on safety grounds really, what's in our airspace. It is very unusual to have anything at that particular height over Brighton, over any town or city. That's general aviation is not permitted that low. Commercial aviation is many thousands of feet higher than that. Most kites and balloons and things are well below it. It's an area where we're normally on our own at that height, so that's, I suppose, what took us a little bit by surprise.
We then flew round, and it seemed to, it gave the impression of moving away from us, and it gave the impression that we were trying to have to chase round to catch it up.
There may be a whole variety of reasons why a police aircraft would take an interest in something else, certainly another aircraft. Reasons that they may not make public either.
The shape was something that I just wanted to try and work out what it was. Working most of the time with the thermal image camera, you like to think you get quite good. I mean, I can't tell you whether it's a Boeing 737 or an Airbus or something, but you can see very clearly, two engines and an aircraft. You can see the military helicopters that are sometimes around at low level. That's the only other thing that was going through my mind, that it might have been. But you can see the shape of the helicopter, the rotors going around, the heat from the jet exhaust, all the things you could see. What I could see here was just one single light in a daylight camera and this cylinder shape in the night camera, and it's trying to put those two together just to make some logical sense of what we were seeing.
We talk about credible witnesses, and one of those that you put in that category is a police officer. Not only a police officer, but in a helicopter at the time, with some very good quality photographic equipment, films an anomalous object at night, both with night vision and ordinary. So that's why people become interested in it, because police officers, respected members of the community, not likely to make up stories.
People are more likely to believe it because it's come from a reliable source.
It was something so unique to them, when bear in mind they're in the air all the time and they're following this, that and the other, that they perceived it as being extremely strange. When you see it on the film, it looks extremely bizarre. It's an unusual shape. It quite clearly is there, and it quite clearly gets quite close to the helicopter. It was corroborated by the other people in the helicopter. It's a very puzzling case.
I was very pleased in some ways to be able to record it. If you see something that's slightly different or slightly interesting, I mean, the general rule of thumb is no one believes you. And I'm probably included in that same bracket as one of life's cynics. As a policeman and as a pilot, having seen something that I found interesting and a little bit out of the ordinary, I was very pleased that at the time I was able to record it. I actually had the camera on and managed to get this little bit of footage.
Photographic video testimony is no better than just ordinary eyewitness testimony. The two are combined. I mean, most photographic evidence is submitted when people say, well, I've taken this picture or I've taken this video, and they observed something thereafter. It wasn't something they were actually filming. And without question, usually this is something conventional. It's just something that's appeared on the film, a bird or a photographic fault of some kind. But the good thing about photographic evidence is you can actually put it under the microscope, so to speak. You know, witness testimony is fine to a point, but you can't examine it any further scientifically, whereas a film or a photograph you can analyze it by computer, take it to the laboratory and so on. So it's something a little bit more tangible, which makes it that much more interesting, and hopefully will give you some more answers than just what the witness claims to have seen.
John tracked the object using the sophisticated technology in the helicopter, hoping to finally identify Brighton's visitor.
We've reviewed this tape many times, and it's been the subject of much discussion, even a little bit of mirth, I suppose. I'm happy in my own mind. I know what it is.
When you look at footage, I'm very, very cautious to say whether something's a UFO or not as such, i.e. a genuine, supposedly ET, because it's very difficult to verify, and you should really only make informed judgments when the analysis has been made. Yeah, it looks very unusual, and I think in this case was treated quite rightly as an unidentified aerial object, which it was, but after investigation it would appear now that there is a credible explanation.
Initially we got it on the infrared camera, and that you can see on the video footage, and that confused us. We didn't know what it was then, and then we managed to pick it up on the normal video camera.
When you look at the film in colour rather than through the night vision, you can see it is a man-made balloon of some kind.
What it does demonstrate is that people who are involved in UFO research do not accept things carte blanche. You just don't take it as read that, right, that's an alien. It's not like that at all.
The close encounter between the helicopter crew and the strange craft lasted about 4 minutes, but they were still unable to solve the riddle of Brighton's alien visitor.
If you see the video, you will see exactly what we saw, no more and no less, and you can make up your own mind. In my mind, it's fairly clear. I believe it's a hot air balloon or a lantern, something of that description. Who's to say whether I'm right or wrong? I've made up my mind, that's what it is. But you look at the video, you make up your own mind.
The White Horse of Westbury, Wiltshire, an internationally renowned landmark in a county that boasts some of the world's oldest mystical sites. In August 1980, 3 circles appeared overnight in a cornfield below the horse. It was the beginning of a crop circle phenomenon that provoked intense media attention and a whole generation of hoaxers.
Crop circles came to the fore in the early to mid-1980s when some of the national media, national newspapers picked up on them. Headlines such as E.T. phoned home, I think was one of them. So it'll give you some idea of the time frame we're dealing with. And they've been a subject of hot debate ever since.
Freddie Silver is a respected researcher into crop circles. Through scientific investigation, he has developed plausible theories of some mind-boggling concepts.
Wiltshire has a very interesting relationship with the crop circles, principally because of the location on the Earth. Wiltshire sits on one of the world's deepest aquifers. It's a chalk aquifer about 400 feet deep. And as such, the water that trickles through the chalk in itself creates an electromagnetic spin effect.
I certainly believe that there are energies within the Earth that, again, conventional science tends to ignore or dismiss.
If you were to look up crop circle in a dictionary, what you probably find would be something like a perfectly incised area in wheat, rye, barley, whatever. There are areas where the plants are bent an inch above the soil, perfectly laid in waves, as if flowing water.
There are genuine crop circles, but they are the simple circles rather than the the hieroglyphics and heavens knows what else that we see today.
In hoax crop circles, you find that the edges are imprecise, that the plants are damaged, that the plants, instead of being perfectly laid, are very waved. I don't mind if people make crop circles if they put the farmers in on it, and it allows people to analyze things from a scientific point of view. It does give us a barometer with which to judge the real phenomenon by. Because when you look at the man-made ones, you can start looking at the difference. You can start looking at the ground and saying, well, wait a minute, the lay in this particular crop circle is not the same as that one.
But are crop circles all hoaxes? While there are many reported incidents of fake circles, others remain unexplained. Local shop owner Ray Barnes has taken walks through Westbury's fields every day since 1979.
It was a Saturday early in July 1981. The corn circle started by me noticing a line in the crop just this side of that hedge, and it travelled across the field. It looks, I guess, about 50 miles an hour because it's quite wider, that field, than you think. The heads of the corn were jiggling about. They were actually moving. I mean, when you see them over a 50-yard front, it's hard to miss them. I mean, it wasn't just one or two. Everything else was perfectly still. It started at that angle and finished at that angle, so it came round on a radius. Then it just dropped to the ground and described a circle.
There's only been, to my knowledge, about 80 people around the world who've seen the crop circles form in about 15 seconds. So it's good because now it gives us some kind of a base in which to establish what's happening here.
There was no bounce back of the corn heads as it would when a tractor passed it. That was one of the things that surprised me at the time, actually.
In Ray's case, where he sees the invisible line snaking across the crop and then laying the crop down in 4 seconds, seems to actually correlate to what's happening on the ground. And again, it also is interesting in that his description of the laying down method, where there's no spring back, means that there's no damage either. And this is what we're finding and relating it to the physical evidence. So I find his case is very, very compelling.
I think Ray's account is unique in my understanding. I've not heard that type of description before. The other eyewitnesses to crop circles forming has been, more or less just a puff of wind and a few bits of the corn into the air, and that's it. It's there. It happens very, very quickly.
Had Ray's sighting been by chance, or had he been chosen to witness the rare phenomenon? Why he saw it is unknown, but what he witnessed in 1981 was merely the beginning of his strange relationship with that field.
I saw 2 combine harvesters, and I looked up and decided that in 20 minutes they would finish the field because they were working together and working into the middle. I walked 10 feet, looked up, and they'd packed up, they'd finished. And there was no way they could have combined those last few rows.
The roots in plants are supposed to be geotropic. In other words, they move downwards to face the actual point of gravity in the earth, which is right at the center. Now in crop circles, what we're beginning to find is that the roots are actually not growing downwards, they're actually growing horizontally. So which means that something must have happened here which has altered the actual root structure in a very, very short space of time, which has allowed them to move. Now time, as physics knows, is something that's related to our gravitational field. If you alter the gravitational field of the Earth, then obviously time has to be affected in some way. A couple of scientists took clocks, digital clocks, into a crop circle. One was in the crop circle, one was far away back at home, timed to the same moment, and when they put the 2 clocks back together, found that 20 minutes had been missing. So clearly there's something going on here.
At the start of the 1990s, that same field of corn once again disturbed Ray's peaceful walks. It appeared to have many more secrets to share.
I came down here and looked across this field, and it was full of billowing brown smoke from a heath fire down in Dorset. And when it reached this point here, it was held by a wall, by what appeared to be a wall. And over the other side, it was perfectly clear, and you could see the sky and clouds and everything through it. But on this side, you couldn't even see the sky through the thick brown smoke.
The smoke just seems to hit this invisible wall, so it actually delineates this invisible tube of energy. Again, this tube has actually been photographed, so we know it's there. We know that pilots go across these tubes of energy and their equipment fails, so we know it's there.
Around this time, Ray Barnes was contacted by Colin Bloy. Colin studied the practices of divining and had read about Ray's original crop circle sighting because of his interest in the area. He too witnessed the events in the field.
Certainly we were able to establish that there were energies in that place which were disturbing normal phenomenon, like shadows, like light, like time.
Ray took this photo in the summer of 1990. He had become unsettled once again by what he saw in the field.
I noticed that the tree shadows laying across the field where the first corn circle had formed were in fact converging. They weren't parallel. This tree here had a shadow which laid that way across the field. And those two trees up there, their shadows laid this way across the field.
The shadows of the trees, instead of being parallel, were all converging on the point of the circle, which is very odd. It can only happen when the energy is a bit strange.
I stopped several people. I said, what do you think of those shadows over there? And they said, they're not right, are they? They're not right. And I cannot understand what it is. I cannot understand what causes the shadows to go one way one side of the wall and the other way the other side of the wall.
These are all things that perhaps indicate an alteration of the local gravitational field.
An invisible wall, converging shadows, the desynchronization of time, and the formation of a crop circle. These events were all beyond obvious explanation, but seemed to be connected.
I had come down and I'd actually gone up to photograph the trees on this side of the field to see if the shadows were straight. And then I spotted this corn circle. The main circle was clockwise, and the two on the right-hand side were also clockwise. Now, when that began to sprout again, which was several months later, 3-4 months later, all the clockwise circles were filled with the yellow rank grass, you know, like the sort of stuff you see growing on the seashore. But the fourth circle, which had gone the other way, anti-clockwise, that was filled with a lush green growth.
Over the years, we've had many theories as to what it's causing crop circles, and a lot of them are very plausible. A lot of them were very implausible at the beginning because we didn't know much at the time, and now we do. For example, we started off with things like the weather theory, the plasma vortex theory, part of which I think to be true.
I don't have any theories about the ball at all. I think it's connected with the circles. I just don't know what it is.
I had to say and conclude that it's not weather, but it's a natural source, which is found all around the Earth, which has been harnessed in a certain way that we are not totally aware of yet, and it's been used in a certain, very specific way, very focused way, to create these interesting shapes.
Ray is still disturbed by what he saw, despite the efforts of Freddie Silver and Colin Bloy to explain the phenomenon. So far, no one can say what is creating it and why.
There's that many different kinds of phenomena reported regularly that something's happening here.
We know it's not an airplane for a fact because this doesn't have all the characteristics of an airplane or anything like that, or an earthly object. So at the end of the day, it comes to be a classic UFO, unidentified flying object.
These stories are some of the strangest experiences ever described in the UK. We can't tell if they're true, but they are all recounted by ordinary people. Now they are your witnesses. These three locals are UFO enthusiasts. In recent years, their long sky watches have paid off with some astounding sightings. But to this day, they remain mystified by the failure of both local authorities and the Ministry of Defence to identify the object.
We investigate UFOs over southern England and try and find out the answer to some of these sightings that get reported to us. In May 2000, we were doing a sky watch in a local area at Netley in Southampton. We'd set up camp in one of our usual spots, and along with us we'd take our cameras, binoculars, night sights, which are night intensified cameras, which we can see in total blackness. We set everything up ready for a sky watch. Now this particular night we'd set up, everything was loaded, set up, camcorders were turned on ready, and suddenly over Southampton Water, to our surprise, we saw this light.
We suddenly saw this orange kind of globe appear on the other side of Southampton Water.
All of us have lived in this area for a long time. We've done sky watches before on many, many occasions, and we've never seen anything flying that low coming up Southampton Water.
We looked at it for a while and couldn't quite make out what it was, so we got the camcorder going. We thought we'd film this.
It's slow, isn't it? It's slow. At first it's nothing, doesn't appear to be anything interesting, it's just a single light just flying along, could be anything. What made it interesting was, as we watched, from the opposite end of Southampton Water we have this airplane. Comes flying down Southampton Water towards this object, and we just thought, well, you know, it's obviously police spot a plane.
It turns around again and falls out.
It's turning around, yeah, it's following it, look.
It's circling.
Well, it's circling it, isn't it? Bloody hell. Yeah.
We didn't quite know from what we could see. We could see the lights of the plane and it coming out. And it approached this orange globe, which was still hovering in the same place, and it went round it twice. And it went away, this plane, and came back again and had another look at it, and you can actually see this on the video.
Strange, isn't it? There's no strobes in there, nothing.
At one point it actually almost stops dead still, where it then turns right round. I was looking at it through binoculars at this point, and I can see what are like a row of about 5 sort of orange golden lights. So we're sort of thinking to each other, well, you know, exactly what is this thing?
The amazing thing is when this object starts to speed up, it stretches, so you've got like a row of 8 lights. It's completely changed from a one round ball of light. And it's astounding. To me it is, and the group, when we saw it, we just lost our breath sort of thing. It's sharp and take a breath and, wow, is it an airplane? Is it a helicopter? And all the way through the sighting we were asking each other questions, and we still come away just in awe, wondering what this object was.
So it was quite stunning really, but we thought, well, we better check up on this, and as the police spotter plane was involved, we can certainly find out. They're bound to tell us what it was. 48 hours later I sat down at my telephone with a list of phone numbers and began to ring around all the local authorities.
Ernie Sears contacted numerous local police authorities and coast guards from the surrounding area, but none of the organizations said they had any aircraft flying in the area that night. The team had video evidence of a plane circling the mystery object, but could find no one that would reveal the plane's identity.
It wasn't a commercial plane, it was very slow. And this police spotter plane is a very slow aircraft, and it will go very slow and very tight to this object.
Definitely the police spotter plane. You can actually see the navigation lights on the plane as it banked round and the shape. And yet, when I phoned the police up afterwards, and this is Police Central Control, who should have known anyway, they completely denied there was anything up.
We know there's something there. We filmed it. We filmed another aircraft flying down and looking at this thing. So somebody knows it was there.
Increasingly bewildered, Ernie Sears contacted the chief of Hampshire Police, and finally confirmation was given that they were flying in the area that night. Despite this breakthrough, however, the police could offer no reports of anything else in the skies.
The response I got the second time was completely different to the one I got the first time.
We've actually got a letter from Hampshire Police saying at the time of the sighting, the police spotter plane was in the area at the time. I mean, they actually circled around it twice. Now, if there was nothing there, why would they circle around it? The pilots must have seen the same thing that we saw. Whether it was captured on the spotter plane's cameras, etc., we don't know.
There's a good chance that there possibly is. There is some footage of this somewhere.
Or have they just wiped over it? Or has it been sent to the Ministry of Defence, to some laboratory somewhere to be enhanced, to look at properly? We simply don't know. We'd like to know. Again, it's one of these avenues. We keep coming up to these brick walls all the time. We get so far, then it's just a brick wall in front of us.
We must be able to see it, whatever it is.
There is quite clearly on the footage an interaction which to my mind makes it pretty clear that that helicopter knew that there was something in the skies above Southampton that shouldn't have been there.
Ernie continued to climb further up the chain of command to discover exactly what the authorities knew about what was in the skies that night.
Well, I contacted the MOD. This chappie came on. He just said, "You're actually talking about a UFO, aren't you?" And he was laughing in his voice, you know. I said, "Well, yeah, it's a UFO, unidentified flying object." He said, "Well, you know, I couldn't tell you that anyway, could I?" We went through all these bases in the area and out of the area, official, and they all said the same thing. There was nothing up.
The team was left frustrated and confused once again. But their story was about to take a new, astonishing turn. The UFO was back.
Virtually a year to the day, we're filming over Southampton Docks area across the water, and suddenly this ball of light appears in the sky. Now, it was a clear night, there was nothing around. And lo and behold, what happens? Again, the police spotter plane appears in the frame, flies across our view and flies back again. Now, eventually the plane just disappears and flies up Southampton Water, and this light is still there when it goes, and it's just there suddenly it starts to fade, and it just fades out of sight.
It is fading though. Yeah. It's going, it's gone. Gone, yeah, gone, just vanished.
The second sighting, 1 year on, renewed the team's determination to push for answers. This time, Ernie would go right to the top, demanding the case be investigated by Dr. Louis Mooney, the Under-Secretary of State for Defence.
The interesting thing with Dr. Mooney's two-page letter was he finally said, "We do not have any problems with believing in extraterrestrial civilization, but the object was of no defence significance, so therefore we do not investigate it, we do not have the finances to investigate it. No defence significance, full stop."
When the MOD come out with the phrase of no defence significance, that strikes me as being pretty strange, because why would the helicopter be there monitoring quite obviously what this light is doing? And if the evidence from video experts, film analysis proves that there is an object there, then you have to say, well, that's an object in our airspace, and two, you know, you've got to say, well, what is that object? And quite clearly, we don't know what that object is, or if we do, somebody's certainly not saying.
When you look at what is there, you've got oil refinery, you've got Marchwood military base there, you've got other things there that, in my way of thinking, would be a defence significance.
Yes, on both occasions it would appear that the police spotter plane had been scrambled to intercept this object and have a look at it. They were curious about it.
That is moving.
It came now. Yeah.
What are they hiding? Why are they afraid of telling us what exactly happened that night?
Gone pretty quick now.
In many of these cases where they've been officially reported, is sure enough the MOD man comes out, but that's usually the last time the policeman ever hears anything. So they never get any feedback. What was the conclusion? And it would be interesting to see these files, and I will be applying for these files in due course.
We know it's not an airplane for a fact, because this doesn't have all the characteristics of an airplane or anything like that, or an earthly object. So at the end of the day, it comes to be a classic UFO, unidentified flying object.
Either they really don't care about it, they've looked at the footage and they really just don't care, they're just not interested, or they do know what it was. They knew before we even contacted them.
This case doesn't mean the end of the Southampton UFO group. It means we'll get better, we'll become stronger, and we'll carry on with our investigations, our sky watches. We truly believe there is something out there, and maybe one day we'll get to the truth.
You might say this thing is bigger than all of us. They don't know what to do about it, they can't do anything about it, and they hope the enigma will go away and leave them alone.
There remains no rational explanation of the craft's origins in either of the sightings. Despite the group's claim of a police spotter plane videoed circling the mystery object, none of the authorities contacted have admitted any reports of anything else flying in the area on those nights.
It would be nice to think it is life from elsewhere. It's a nice thought, but whether it is or not, we will never know. Even asking questions in the House of Lords, I don't think we will ever know the true answer to what this object was.